Looking to catch up on the latest Star Wars books? Featuring sound effects and music directly from the movies, Star Wars audiobooks are the definitive listening experience. Listen to Star Wars Light of the Jedi, written by Charles Soule, read by Mark Thompson, and Star Wars The High Republic, A Test of Courage, written by Justina Ireland and read by Kaylor Lee. Available now wherever audiobooks are sold.
This is Andy Gutierrez from StarWars.com, and you are listening to Coffee with Kenobi with Dan Z. This is the podcast you're looking for.
This is Ashley Eckstein, Ahsoka Tano from Star Wars The Clone Wars and Star Wars Rebels, and you're listening to Coffee with Kenobi with Dan Z.
Joining us today for a cup of coffee is the author of Star Wars The High Republic, Light of the Jedi, Charles Soule. Charles, welcome to Coffee with Kenobi.
Thank you everyone for having me. It's a pleasure.
Absolutely, my friend. It's great to chat with you. So let's go ahead and start with the question everybody wants to know. What is it like to be at Skywalker Ranch?
Skywalker Ranch is, no joke, one of the most beautiful, inspiring places I've ever been. And I have been very fortunate in my life and career to travel a lot. We lived overseas when I was a kid. I've been a lot of beautiful places, and Skywalker Ranch is absolutely up there with the very best of the best. And part of it is that, you know, George Lucas, it's his home. So obviously, you know, he's a person who can afford to build himself a gorgeous home. But he also took great pains to make sure that the environment was sort of creatively nurturing. And so there's all these touches all around, from the way that the food is set up in the cafeteria to the place you stay, to the which is this beautiful kind of rustic inn that's on the property with all these little separate cottages, and each is designed to sort of pay, each room rather is designed to pay homage to a brilliant creator of one kind or another. So one room might be the about Chopin, and another room that I stayed in the Frank Lloyd Wright room once, which was really cool. So it's a place that is kind of a temple to extremely high level creativity. And so when you're there, you're very inspired just to have somehow managed to get there in the first place, and you really want to generate the best work you can. So Skywalker Ranch is everything you imagine it would be, and probably more.
I love it. I've been to Lucasfilm a number of times. I've been to Rancho Obi-Wan, but Skywalker Ranch is still on that list. So that's wonderful to hear, but no surprise.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so let's go ahead and talk about the impetus for this project and how this all-star team of creators came together. Claudia Gray, I talked with her for Stars.com, and she told me the Slack channel is one of the unexpected bonuses of the experience. But what was it like to create a story in this fashion for you?
Well, I come from the comics world, and so the idea of collaborative story building wasn't really new to me. Like, I'd been in rooms where we built big interconnected stories before, but of the five of us, I think I was really the only person who had done that. And so there was sort of, it wasn't like anybody wasn't interested in collaborating or anything like that. We're all very collaborative people, but finding the rhythm of who's good at what and what each person's voice is, and how that can be knitted into the whole in a way that kind of lets everybody play to their strengths, and what ideas are great, and how do we sort of vet ideas in a way that feels very democratic and cool. So it all it's a process that evolved, and we met at Skywalker the first time over about a week, and then that was really our first in-person meeting with all these people, for all of us. And then we went home from that, and we started building the project and started a Slack pretty soon after that. And we just started talking a lot. And that is really, I think, the core of how the High Republic is what it is, because we all have access to each other really easily. So, just today, Justina was asking about a plot point in one of the things she's working on, and we all were able to just immediately respond and say, well, you could do it this way or that way. And that's constant. And so it took time to get to that point, just because, again, stuff takes time to evolve, but it's become this, it really feels like a shared enterprise. And we all have ownership of our own projects, of course. I wrote Light of the Jedi, and Justina wrote Test of Courage, and Claudia wrote Into the Dark, and so on. But it doesn't feel it certainly doesn't feel competitive, which is nice. It just, we're all kind of on the same team, and we really want the High Republic to succeed, which it looks like, just by current indications, it looks like it's kind of a home run, which is really nice.
I would say so. And yeah, it's nice. I've read all of them so far. And yes, they all have the very different, distinct voices, but they all have very much they feel like they're connected. They feel like this part of this overarching story, which is great. And that is really what Star Wars is all about. And it's a very well-known canvas with mythology and clearly a built-in fan base. But you're no stranger to this world, having worked on various DC and Marvel brands, among other companies. And of course, you're very familiar with Star Wars, having written Star Wars, Poe Dameron, and the second volume of Darth Vader, which is absolutely brilliant. How did these works prepare you for the High Republic?
I think if I had to say anything about how my previous Star Wars work helped, it's that it's sort of to speak about a gigantic challenge that was part of doing the High Republic, which is that we had to make something that was, very authentically Star Wars, with that it when you feel it kind of feeling that the really good Star Wars generates. And I was actually doing another interview yesterday with Justina. We're doing a lot of interviews, which is great. Where we were talking about it, and I said, you would never write if you're writing Star Wars, you would never write, Luke Skywalker walked into a restaurant and ordered a cheeseburger. Like that is those like there are a lot of words in there that are just not Star Wars. But if you said Luke Skywalker slipped into the cantina and asked the servitor droid for a Ronto patty, like that's Star Wars. And so it's really being able to speak that odd second language that is still English, but it also has all these other cues that is part of it. It's also knowing all of the philosophical underpinnings of Star Wars. It's knowing the creatures and the planets and why Mon Cala is an interesting world, and the fact that there are both Porins and Mon Calamari there, and they have had like a long-running feud for generations upon generations. Like you almost have to have a PhD in the stuff to do it well. And so to go back to your original question, I would say that having written, I believe I've written more Star Wars comics than any other writer for Marvel anyway. And they've been in all different time periods. So I've written prequel work, I've done a bunch of original trilogy work, and I've done a lot of sequel trilogy work. So all of those things, there's research that was involved in doing those, like reviewing the movies, reviewing other storytelling, and so on. And so you just start to gather this, really in-depth understanding of the Star Wars galaxy, how it works, how the pieces fit together, what the characters should and shouldn't do, and it just sort of all of that skill and knowledge and accumulated sort of database in my head was extremely useful, because in the High Republic, you had to do everything that felt Star Wars, but was also new and fresh. So if cantina was a little played out as a term, you had to figure out another word that meant cantina to a Star Wars reader, but wasn't restaurant or like bar. So there were a lot of things like that I think having a really strong grounding in existing Star Wars enabled me and all of us to take leaps to the next level of Star Wars, which is the High Republic, without it feeling inauthentic, which is something that was really part of our, our part of our guiding star from the very beginning, was to do this, fresh but new, for fresh but authentic, new Star Wars that felt like old Star Wars, but felt like new Star Wars,
Absolutely. And thinking about your work, and honestly, I mean, I'm of course very, very serious, but I mean, I am a huge, whenever I see your name on a Star Wars comic book, it's a given I'm going to get it, because I know what kind of quality and care, and I'm a big fan of your prose, and you've taken Star Wars and you've continually reinvented it. I can't help but think of Gracchus the Hutt, for example. That's a perfect microcosm of what we're talking about.
Yeah, Gracchus, is, well, any of these Hutts, I mean, any of these Hutts listen to me, but like any of the characters that, whether you're creating somebody new, like I think Commander Zara in my current Star Wars one is a good example, because she is a character, she's an Imperial officer that needs to kind of be a threat to the rebellion, but is also somebody that we've never seen before. And the problem is that in this time period, you've already got Darth Vader, Emperor Palpatine, Tarkin's dead by this point, but he was around, so like, how do you create a character that has the appropriate level of menace, but is also somebody who, the readers are going to be introduced to for the first time? And it's a real challenge to do it. And you kind of have to find the right backstory to them. You have to find the right way to connect them to existing canon. You have to find the right motivation for them and all of those things. And for this particular character, Commander Zara, she was Tarkin's direct protege. She studied under him for a long time until she kind of made a mistake that he thought was, a stupid mistake. And so he kind of exiled her to to the spice mines of Kessel, actually, just as like to sort of oversee that for a little while. And then she figured out how to redeem herself and was flying to redeem herself when the Death Star blew up with Tarkin on it. And so she had never got a chance to sort of prove herself in her teacher's eyes, and she blames Leia Organa for that failure. And so you have this person who, lost their mentor in the Death Star explosion, which to her mind, Leia Organa is directly responsible for because she stole the plans for the thing. And on top of that, she has staffed her Star Destroyer, which she has renamed the Tarkin's Will, with exclusively crew members who all lost somebody on the Death Star. So you have this beautifully again, I did it, so I'm talking up my own work, but like it's this thing that doesn't just work on one level. It works on like 12 different levels to hopefully make her a compelling protagonist with a really interesting backstory and a really defined set of goals. You know why she wants to kill Leia, and why it's personal for her. And so, like that kind of level of construction is something that we've all brought to the High Republic characters as well, which is interesting because you don't have the Death Star and you don't have Tarkin. And so you have to find ways to do those things without some of the storytelling sort of infrastructure that you have when you're working in the modern era.
Certainly. Wow, I could easily just sit and chat with you about comic books all day for sure. But I love that. So we're not going to give away any spoilers because that's not what we do on Coffee with Kenobi. But there are some fans who have not yet picked up the book, but undoubtedly are about to do so. But how would you explain what the great tragedy is that is looming over the galaxy? And can you talk about the creative decisions that led to this opening act of this new era in Star Wars?
Absolutely. So Light of the Jedi begins with an event called the Great Disaster. It becomes known as that. And, there are modern analogs for things like this. And you could think of Pearl Harbor, or 9/11, unfortunately, like, things that sort of that are so tragic that everything kind of stops dead in their wake. And they become they cause significant wide-ranging challenges across all the various systems that they touch. And so when I was coming up with how to introduce readers to the era of the High Republic, because Light of the Jedi is really where it all begins, that's the first out of the gate project. I thought, well, what is the best way to show readers what this era is like? And because I wanted to show them the Republic, I wanted to show them the Jedi, I wanted to show them ordinary people, I wanted to show them, just everything I could think of in one sequence. And so I thought, well, what really tests systems or really exposes what systems are made of is disasters, crisis. And I think we've all seen it pretty clearly in the past year with the way the coronavirus has been handled. Some systems have just worked better than others. But it's been interesting to see sort of the all hands on deck response to the pandemic. And while I wrote the Great Disaster sequence well before the pandemic began, it's kind of the same thing, because within this one event, which is basically there's a problem with hyperspace, and fragments start appearing in a system far out in the outer rim, hurtling at almost light speed, that are essentially unstoppable, and they're gonna it's like a shotgun fired at this incredibly important agricultural system in the outer rim, and the Force would have it. There's a Jedi and Republic cruiser not far away, and they pop into the system and they start trying to do what they can to help. But, it's a very gigantic challenge because there are hundreds of these incredibly fast moving projectiles that you kind of can't easily detect or see, but any one of them, if it hits because of the speed it's traveling, would hit with the force of, many, many atomic bombs. So the Jedi have to figure out how to solve this. The Republic has a bunch of personnel on hand who have to solve this. You have Jedi going down to the planets to help sort of deal with the panic that the population is experiencing. You have Jedi and Republic pilots in space. You have, all of these different people. You have the Chancellor Lena So back in Coruscant, who is trying to coordinate a response there. It really gives you a very broad spectrum approach to the way the galaxy is organized, how they deal with problems, what their aspirations are, what they're trying to solve, what they're trying to save. And so it's a third of the book. It's a long sequence. It's about 100 and some pages. And it keeps intercutting between different points of view. It was challenging to put together, but by the end of it, I think you take a minute, you catch your breath, because it's very, very fast paced. And you're like, whoa, okay, I understand. I totally get it now. I know how this place, I know what they all want. I know who they are. I know what this galaxy is about. I know what it feels like. And then you move on to the next part of the story. So it serves as not just an introduction to Light of the Jedi, but also to the entire High Republic, which was obviously pretty challenging to put together, but I think it really lands well. I'm very proud of the opening.
When I've had the good fortune to have had a copy of this book for about a month or so now, and when people have been asking me, I say, look, the opening of this is so suspenseful and tension filled. It's like a white knuckle read. It's a stroke of genius the way, and I'm also a teacher of literature at the high school level and for a college class as well. So I've actually used segments of your book to explain to students how to build suspension, how to build pacing in such a way that's authentic. So bravo to you.
Well, I tried to pull out every single trick I could. And there's a thing that I think I bring from comics, and I put it into my original novels, Anyone in the Oracle Year, as well as Light of the Jedi. But I try to make each chapter almost its own issue of a comic. So it has a beginning, middle, and end, and has a strong cliffhanger that pulls you to the next chapter. So, ideally, when you start a chapter, you are never lost. You are brought into the action very quickly and cleanly. It progresses. There's a midpoint. It's a 3-act structure basically in each chapter, give or take. And there's real progression and change. And by the end, you're like, something significant has happened, and you cannot wait to see what's going to happen in the next one. And I find it to be a very effective structure for storytelling, for this kind of like, oh my God, I can't put it down sort of thing. And that's what I've been fortunate to keep hearing about Light of the Jedi, is that it's incredibly compelling and difficult to stop, which is what you want to hear when you've written a novel.
Even to that, well, even to like the fact that the chapters are not overly lengthy. They're just the right amount to say, you know what, I am tired, but I think I'm going to read one more chapter. I mean, that's certainly what you did to me when I read it. So good. All right, so let's go ahead and look at some of the characters in Light of the Jedi. Who is Avar Kriss to you, and what sets her apart from the previous Jedi we have met since 1977?
Sure. Well, Avar Kriss is, I guess the first thing to say is that Light of the Jedi does not have a typical protagonist who is driving the action all the way through. Mm-hmm. I think very much like a Star Wars movie that has a broad, sprawling cast that you keep cutting in between, Light of the Jedi has many main characters, all of whom have individual stories that are being told and experiencing the events on their own. So, but if some are more primary than others, and Avar Kriss is certainly one of those. So she is a Jedi master. She is about 30 years old, and she has a unique way of experiencing the Force, which is that she sort of interprets it as a song, as music almost. And so there's this in her head at all times. Sometimes she dials up the volume or dials it down, but there's this sprawling, beautiful symphony of assonance and dissonance that is the entire sort of song of the Force. It's everything, every living thing interconnected in the way that music can be. And so she is able to use that to get information and to, more importantly, connect with other Jedi. Because she can sort of sense the other Jedi within the song of the Force, and she can't, it's not telepathy, she can't communicate with them, but she can sense their states. She can provide very limited pieces of sort of, of information along that network, and just help to coordinate everything in a way that makes the Jedi extremely effective in groups. So that's an ability that we've sort of seen hints at in the past, or it's analogous to an ability that we've seen in the past called battle meditation. And that's something that I've gotten a lot of questions about on Twitter. But the thing is, I've been very hesitant to call it battle meditation, because that's not what it is. It's not for battles. It's the song of the Force. It's just the way it comes from her understanding of the Force and the way she hears and feels it. And then that just allows various applications of it. And certainly, in theory, during a battle, it can be useful, but it's also useful in things like, the Great Disaster is not a battle, but Avar Kriss's sort of Song of the Force is extremely instrumental in helping save billions of lives there. So it's just another way of looking at the connection to the Force and the way the Force binds and connects us all. And that music metaphor, I have a big music background myself, so that music metaphor is able to, you can get a lot of really cool storytelling out of it. So that's Avar. I mean, but there's tons of great Jedi in this book, and one of the things that you'll see in Light of the Jedi is that I explore how many Jedi have a different type of interpretation of what the Force is to them. Because, in the original trilogy, we really only get one point of view on what the Force is, which is an energy force that binds and connects us all, which is basically what Obi-Wan and Yoda convey to Luke. But they are part of the same sort of, I don't know, educational lineage, if you want to call it that.
Sure.
And so it makes sense that they would sort of have a similar interpretation. And also, the Jedi of the prequels and even into the original trilogy seem somewhat more dogmatic than what we see in the High Republic. And so it's been really neat to be able to explore the Force in many different ways, because, when you think about what it is, if you could touch it and feel it, I think everybody would interpret what they were dealing with based on their own background. So, a Wookiee is going to see it as maybe a huge endless forest, right? Or somebody who's from Nar Shaddaa is going to see it as this endless cityscape with lights in every window. So it's just really interesting to explore the way that different beings might feel the Force and see it in their minds.
This is Vanessa Marshall, and you're listening to Coffee with Kenobi.
Looking to catch up on the latest Star Wars books but can't find the time? Try listening to them on audio, featuring sound effects, top-notch narrators, and music directly from the movies. Star Wars audiobooks are the definitive listening experience. Centuries before the Skywalker saga, a new adventure begins. The High Republic is a massive, interconnected, cross-publisher initiative focused on an all-new era of Star Wars storytelling. Listen to Star Wars Light of the Jedi, written by Charles Soule and read by Mark Thompson, and A Test of Courage, written by Justina Ireland and read by Kaylor Lee. Visit penguinrandomhouseaudio.com/Coffee with Kenobi to listen to clips and find your next listen, or buy now wherever books and audiobooks are sold. MEI and Mouse Fan Travel is your one-stop shop for your vacation needs and your plans to Walt Disney World, Disneyland, or the cruise lines. Travel looks much different now than it did a couple of months ago, and with the opening of Walt Disney World and soon, hopefully, the opening of Disneyland, you need a place to go where you can trust, and they will help you figure out and navigate all the different circumstances and guidelines that Disney has put out for you. And I can say that we had our vacation modified, and as soon as dates were announced, MEI contacted me directly to help me reschedule, which is exactly what I was hoping to do. So if you are interested in rescheduling your vacation or want to try to plan a Walt Disney World, Disneyland vacation, or anywhere else you want to go on the planet, be sure to contact MEI and Mouse Fan Travel at www.coffeewithkenobi.com/mousefantravel. Their signature service and expert advice will help you maximize your vacation time and dollar, and they will help you figure out all the different changes and modifications going on at the Disney theme parks. They are amazing, and I can tell you, honestly, from the bottom of my heart, the peace of mind that Becky Menken and the crew at MEI and Mouse Fan Travel have given me is invaluable. If you're interested at all, again, go to www.coffeewithkenobi.com/mousefantravel. Right, I really like that, the fact that it's beautiful. It's sort of a natural, organic way to sense it. The music metaphor is certainly very powerful. It kind of reminded me of writing, sort of, taking prose, taking different words and getting it on paper, getting it onto a computer. And it almost becomes like a lyrical thing in your brain when you're writing it. There are beats to it, there are rhythms. And so I really identified with how you had her connect to the Force, because I feel like there's some parallels there.
Well, it's funny because another thing I was asked in an interview recently was, how do I see the Force? And I said a story, because if you think about it, every life is a story. Every being from birth to death is a story. And if the Force is the field that connects us all, it's all just infinite stories. And it is itself an infinitely long story with no real beginning or end. And it's comprised of stories that have beginnings, middle, and ends. All those lives that are lived within the Force. So, and that seemed very apt to me, because I do interpret life as stories, and my own story and other people's stories, and the over story, and all of the many stories that we all are part of and contribute to and encounter in our lives. I mean, it feels very much like the way we talk about the Force.
Absolutely. Well, speaking of new interpretations of the Force, Elvar Mann has unique ways of using and communicating with the Force. What can you tell us about him and what sets him apart from other unorthodox Jedi, assuming that's even a fair term for Elvar?
I don't know that I would say he's unorthodox. He's definitely somebody who believes in the Order and believes in helping it and believes in being a useful part of it.
Sure. I guess in a way he always is trying different ways. That's kind of
yes.
That's very fun.
I think, but again, orthodoxy is the idea that, first of all, you'd have to accept the idea that there's orthodoxy in the High Republic, which, there is. They still take the vows. There's still some stuff that's like, there's the light side and the dark side and various things like that. But overall, it just seems a time in which ideas are explored fairly freely, which is pretty cool. So, but Elzar Mann takes that and runs with it. I mean, he just is always trying to find new ways to just see what the Force can do, because, as we've seen, even in the media that we've seen, the Force is capable of, like, not anything, but extraordinarily diverse sets of effects and feats and abilities. And so if you were basically said, okay, you have a superpower, and the only limit on what that superpower can do is figuring out what you can do with it, you probably, like a certain type of personality, would spend their entire life just figuring out, well, I wonder if it can heat up a microwave burrito, whatever. Whatever the thing is that you might, like, one day idly figure out, I wonder if it can do this. And that's kind of what Elzar Mann is like. He's somebody who sees the Force as this delightful source of ideas to be explored and examined. And he as soon as he masters something, he's kind of over it. Like, he's like, okay, I can do this. I know the Force can do this, so I can do it. What's next? And so he's always trying to learn, basically, learn a new trick, learn a new song, learn a new ability, which is fun because it allows him to have this kind of like back storage, or like a backpack full of Force tricks that maybe we haven't seen people do before. Mm-hmm. And also it means that he can screw up spectacularly when he's like, well, I bet the Force could do this, but then it actually doesn't work out at all. So he's a really interesting character. And I would say that he's not, like, Qui-Gon Jinn comes to mind as another character who's considered sort of an unorthodox Jedi, but
yes,
his version was kind of more like, just exploring hidden knowledge and just sort of interpreting the Force in ways that have become on the edge of heretical within the Jedi Order of the prequels. So it's kind of a different tone, but I guess you could call him unorthodox.
No, that's actually was my inspiration for that. I'm sure you probably heard that a lot too. He reminded me of Qui-Gon, although he was certainly man is taken much more differently from the Jedi, I think, at least on the surface, than Qui-Gon did, which I think is pretty cool. So as a high school English teacher in my day job, I speak with students all the time about etymology. And once I learned of the villains in the High Republic, the wheels started turning for me when I first heard the term. What can you share with us about the new big bad in Star Wars?
Okay. The big bad, there's sort of the big bad. There's also the organization of which the big bad is a part.
Yes.
And I'll start with the organization, then I'll drill into the individual I'm talking about. So there's a group in space called the Nile, and they are, they fit kind of the outer space raider archetype, who, like space Vikings, space pirates, whatever. They go, they swarm down on a settlement, they burn it to the ground, they take anything they want, kill people and go, right? So we've kind of seen that sort of thing in some ways before. But I will say, I think it's particularly well done here, but still, okay, that's kind of your sort of level one. But then level two is that they have this ability, which is to use hyperspace in ways that it has never been really used before. So they can do things with hyperspace that nobody else can do, from tiny micro jumps to, leaping into atmosphere to getting in and out of systems in very unique ways, and getting in and out of places that kind of ordinarily hyperspace wouldn't let you get in and out of, which makes them very terrifying foes for anybody who doesn't have that set of capabilities. So they're organized around like storm ideas. So there's kind of ranks within them, and the lowest ranks are strikes, and then you have clouds, and then you have storms, and then you have tempests. And there are three main tempests within the Nile, three sort of chains or groups, and each has its own leader called a Tempest Runner, and there are three of those. So you have Lorna D, Pen Eta, and Kassav. And then you also have this other person who is really the big bad of all of this, whose name is Markian Rowe. And he is known as the Eye of the Nile. And he is the person who provides, the eye of the storm, eye of the Nile, you get it. And he is the person who provides the Nile with their unique ability through hyperspace, which are called the paths. He is the source of the paths, which are sort of hyperspace, super secret, super special hyperspace routes, which the Nile are able to plug into special engines on their ships called the path engines that let them do these amazing things. And so they are mainly a threat in the Outer Rim, and we see sort of them doing some really, truly savage things, and building up in a way that I think is really interesting. They evolve a lot over the course of Light of the Jedi, and they will continue to evolve over the course of the High Republic into some really interesting places that I can't wait to see how people react.
Wow. Well, I love that. So am I correct that nihilism did that help to kind of inspire the term the Nile? Was that part of that?
Yes, of course. It's both annihilate and nihilism. Those words are definitely both inspirations for what the Nile are all about.
I love it. That's great. So obviously there have been a lot of wonderful things, and there's so many more great things for people to explore about not only Light of the Jedi, but the High Republic and everything that's coming this year and beyond. But for you, and maybe it's too early to answer, but maybe not, what has been one of the most rewarding things about this entire experience so far?
I think, well, the first thing that springs to mind, which is a true thing, and this isn't just being sappy, is like really the connection between me and the rest of the team. Like, I didn't expect to have this group of 5 people that I would be speaking to every single day and would be, collaborating so closely with, and I would have trust in, and like, and now that everything's coming out and it's being sort of really, really well received, it just feels like all of this work we've been doing for like 2.5 years, it feels so good to have gone through it with these people. And during quarantine, when your social circles are really reduced and you can't really see people the same way you used to, it's just been awesome to have them there. I mean, we do video calls, we do the Slack talk, we do all kinds of stuff. And it's just been that has been really good. So that's sort of on a personal level. But then obviously, like, the way, getting these books out and the way that they've been received, and doing a new era of Star Wars, which is such kind of a gamble and a risk, and having people this enthusiastically jump onto it, it feels unbelievably good. And, the sales are through the roof on all the projects that have been released so far. We've vastly exceeded expectations from like every level. Our own expectations have been exceeded. Reviews are great. It just feels, and it's Star Wars. So when people get good Star Wars, they like love it. And you see fan art, you see Twitter goes crazy. Like you're part of something that people really want to love. And if you can be part of giving them something to love, especially in a time that's kind of as dark as this in many ways, it feels fantastic. So I guess that's the other thing I would say.
That's beautiful. And lastly, please let everyone know about the Oracle Year and anyone. I imagine there are different challenges to creating mythology from scratch that is also equally invigorating and exciting.
Yes. I have 2 original novels that I wrote before Light of the Jedi. The first came out in 2016 or 17, I think. Maybe later than that, actually. It was later. It doesn't matter. I don't remember. But I think it was 2017 and then 2019, or maybe 20, something like that. But the point is, I have 2 other novels. I'm very proud of both. The first was called The Oracle Year, and it's about a young man who learns 108 things that are due to happen over the next year. And they're all sort of predictions of the future, big and small, and he knows they're all going to come true. He can't change them. So it's really about how he takes that information and what he does with it. And it's very much a meditation on free will and destiny and choice, and who are we and who are we supposed to be, and how much about our fate is predetermined and how much can we change. And it's again, just like Light of the Jedi, a very, very fast-paced kind of thrillery thing with each chapter directly pulling you forward to the next. And then my second original novel is called Anyone, which is about the invention of a technology that lets people jump into another person's body. So sort of quantum leapy in a way, or
Sure.
Altered carbony. But what happens is in the book, you see the technology. It jumps between two time periods. The first is now, when at the moment that the tech is invented, and then it shifts to 25 years later when it's become as commonplace as smartphones, and everyone uses it for like commuting to work or traveling for vacations. They just happen to other bodies in other parts of the world. And so it was really interesting for me because I love technology and what it does and how where you think it's going to go can zig and zag from where it actually begins. And it's, again, a super, super fast-paced kind of sci-fi thriller, but it's also very grounded. Like, you will be able to recognize the characters very easily in the story. So both of those are available now. They're both available in paperback, ebook, audio. And I'm pretty sure both are actually on sale right now to connect with the Light of the Jedi release. So if you enjoyed Light of the Jedi, or if either one of those premises sounds fun, I'm very proud of both, and I would urge you to check them out. They're easy to find.
I got to say, I read The Oracle Year, and I absolutely loved it. So I'm very excited to hear anyone in your description is outstanding as well.
Listening to Coffee with Kenobi, you are with Dan Z, the podcast you're looking for. This is...
As we near the end of the show today, I want to thank each and every one of you for taking time out of your busy schedule to have a cup of coffee with me and for helping to spread the word about our Star Wars family we've got here at Coffee with Kenobi. Be sure to tune in Monday nights at 8 o'clock p.m. Central Standard Time on Facebook Live at www.coffeewithkenobi.com/live or www.facebook.com/coffeewithkenobi and have a cup of coffee, tea, or any beverage of your choosing with me as we continue the conversation. To join us in the CWK Cafe, which is our Facebook group, and share your Star Wars thoughts, comments, reviews, and opinions in a family-friendly, spoiler-free place that is also drama-free, go to www.coffeewithkenobi.com/community and be part of the conversation, talk about this week's show, or just talk about some Star Wars. We have a lot of fun, and you'll make some new friends, as well as catch up with longtime friends along the way. I also want to thank all of the new and longtime members of the CWK Alliance and let you know how much I appreciate your help and encouragement. I really appreciate our CWK Alliance members: Carol Cantwell, James Kersey, Greg Hargrove, Cato McNichol, Mary Purdue, Terry King, Smooth Rivera, J.C. Poe, Ed Kimoto, Robert Avila, Dustin Mills, Chelsea Sansbury, Tyler Pompa, Hannah, Alex Procasio, Ian Thompson, David Nicely, Simbot Deptridarian, Christine Turk, Ross Halliban, Kurt McQuillan, Dan Ream, Colby Mead, Brian Harding, Frank Mulder, Blake Weaver, Chris Metz, LJ Souter, Chris Skavarka, Jeff Ellis, Yancey Evans, Daz Davies, Susan Gray, Thea Selby, Christian Dale, Brian McKinney, Jim Capron, Connie Shee, Jared Cantor, Jason Hall, Eric Struthers, Greg McLaughlin, Aaron Harris, Mark Suter, Angela Sauce, and Dennis Keithley. If you want to join the CWK Alliance, go to www.cwkalliance.com and sign up today. Not only will you help out Coffee with Kenobi, but you also get access to CWK Pour-Over, the exclusive weekly podcast not heard anywhere else. It's a great way to support and help out the show, and 10% of your monthly contributions go directly to the St. Jude Children's Hospital to support the incredibly important work they are doing to help these brave children and their families. Plus, contributors at the CWK All-Star level can watch a video podcast of CWK Pour-Over hosted by me, Tom Gross, and Corey Clubb. Feel free to reach out anytime if you have any questions. In addition to being part of the community on Facebook, please don't forget to visit our website at www.coffeewithkenobi.com for Star Wars news, announcements, reviews, videos, and so much more. If you have a question for me or just want to share your thoughts on the air, feel free to email me at danz@coffeewithkenobi.com and I'll share them on the show. You can also connect with me on Twitter at Mr. Zaire, MRZEHR, or on Instagram at DanZareCWK. There are also a lot more ways to connect with me and Coffee with Kenobi on social media. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram. Give us a like on Facebook at facebook.com/coffeewithkenobi. Check us out on Pinterest or subscribe to our Coffee with Kenobi YouTube channel. On our YouTube channel, you can find Facebook Live video, different interviews throughout the years, highlights of video coverage throughout the Coffee with Kenobi history, and the audio podcast itself. You can order my book, The Star Wars Book, which I co-wrote with Lucasfilm's Pablo Hidalgo and Cole Horton, on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Target, Books A Million, Walmart, or anywhere books are sold. You can also find my writing on Coffee with Kenobi's website, as well as StarWars.com, where I am an official blogger there, and on IGN, where I contribute occasionally to articles about Star Wars, as well as other popular culture topics. If you are considering starting a podcast or a blog, let me know how I can help you get started and make your creative vision a reality. Be sure to check out danzmedia.com and we can get the process started. I am also available to come to your school, conference, business, or organization to talk about how to tap into your strengths and help you bring out your very best. I want to inspire you to be inspired so you can take that first step into a larger world. Thanks as always to our Coffee with Kenobi sponsors, especially MEI and Mouse Fan Travel, our travel partner and your one-stop shop for all things Walt Disney World, Disneyland, the Disney Cruise Lines, or anywhere on the planet you want to go on your vacation. Please go to www.coffeewithkenobi.com/mousefantravel to book your magical vacation and help support Coffee with Kenobi in the process. If you like the show, please tweet out that you're listening, share it on Facebook, or invite your friends and family to tune in and share a cup of coffee with us. And if the Force is especially with you, please take a couple of minutes to rate and review the show on iTunes or Google Podcasts. Every review makes a huge difference and helps to spread the word, and I can't thank you enough for your help, for your support, and your friendship. I love so much being a part of this wonderful Star Wars community, and I can't thank you enough for all that you do for me and Coffee with Kenobi. Well, Charles, it's been an absolute delight to have a cup of coffee with you and talk about Light of the Jedi, available wherever books are sold. But where can people reach out to you if they want to continue the conversation with you?
Well, the easiest place to find me really is Twitter. I am pretty active on Twitter, maybe too active, but it's fun. It's a way to stay connected in these crazy times. I also have a website at charlessoule.com, which has lots of information, web store. You can get signed stuff from me, all kinds of things. But more importantly, you can also easily sign up for my monthly newsletter there, which I send out obviously once a month. It is not intrusive. It doesn't clog up your inbox, but it has information about things I'm working on, little updates. Often has exclusive opportunities to buy merchandise from me, whether that's, Star Wars stuff, my own things, whatever, exclusive things that are not available to the general public. So if any of that sounds interesting, it's all there for you. But mostly I would just hope you would check out some of the books.
Well, hey, thank you so much for being on.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
This podcast is not endorsed by the Walt Disney Company or Lucasfilm Limited. It is intended for entertainment and informational purposes only. The official Star Wars website can be found at www.starwars.com. Star Wars, all names, sounds, and any other Star Wars-related items are registered trademarks and or copyrights of Disney and their respective trademark and copyright holders. All original content of this podcast is the intellectual property of Coffee with Kenobi unless otherwise indicated.
This is the podcast you're looking for.
There's no one here. Move along. Move along.
Looking to catch up on the latest Star Wars books? Featuring sound effects and music directly from the movies, Star Wars audiobooks are the definitive listening experience. Listen to Star Wars Light of the Jedi, written by Charles Soule, read by Mark Thompson, and Star Wars The High Republic, A Test of Courage, written by Justina Ireland and read by Kaylor Lee. Available now wherever audiobooks are sold.